He was planting flowers when he discovered something disturbing. There was a massive wooden crate buried in the backyard. He took a deep breath and lifted the lid. Inside was a huge pile of cash and a dead body. To make sure he wasn't hallucinating, he steadied himself and lifted the lid again. Even though he was scared out of his mind, David still mustered the courage to open it. Enduring the stench of the corpse, he quickly grabbed a stack of cash from inside. Back in the house, the first thing he did was pull out a counterfeit detection pen. He scribbled all over the dollar bills. Once he confirmed they were real, the recently divorced David was over the moon. But that night, he was woken up by the sound of footsteps. He opened the door to check but found nothing unusual. Not wanting to risk any complications, David dug open the wooden crate again with a shovel and took out all the money inside. Without eating or sleeping, he spent 3 whole days and nights sorting through it. He finally finished counting the entire pile. The total came to $3.48 million. David hid the money in the storage room. He casually grabbed a few bills and went to watch the Euro Cup. He even placed a stack of cash in his bathroom cabinet so that every time he brushed his teeth or washed his face, it would remind him he was a millionaire. Every time he thought about having all that money, he wondered if there was even any point in going to work. So the very next day, he went to the office to resign. But things didn't go the way he expected. He worked as a game programmer. His boss was really looking forward to his new season update and told him that if he could fix the matchmaking system, he'd be promoted to general manager. That made David ecstatic. Right after his divorce, he was hit with a double dose of good fortune. So he took a day off and went to the bank to ask about what to do if a family member left him a large sum of money and how to maximize the returns. The manager told him he'd have to pay this tax and that tax, and he'd only end up with about $1 million. David was not happy to hear that. He decided to hold on to the money himself, but what he never expected was that very night, he heard a banging sound coming from the wooden planks. Terrified that someone might discover his fortune, he grabbed a baseball bat and started patrolling the entire house. He looked everywhere but found nothing. He went back inside and made himself a cup of instant coffee, but then he heard noises outside again. He immediately ran out to check if someone was there.
Goddamn cats!
Thinking it was just a dog, he hurried back inside. Before going to bed, he went to the storage room and confirmed the cash was still there. Only then could David go to sleep in peace. But when he turned off the living room light, he got the scare of his life. Seeing such a terrifying sight, David wasn't about to back down. He grabbed the baseball bat and charged outside, but when he reached the backyard, he realized he had forgotten to cover the wooden crate with dirt. After shoveling a few times, he stopped. He suspected what he'd just seen was the corpse coming back to life. So he gathered his courage and opened the lid. The body was lying there, perfectly still. Just to be safe, David pulled out his phone. He turned on the flashlight and carefully examined the corpse. But just looking from above clearly wasn't thorough enough. So he climbed right into the crate. First, he scanned the body from head to toe. Then he felt for a heartbeat with his hand. He even checked the carotid artery. After that, he repeatedly slapped the corpse's arm to make sure it was truly dead. The next morning when he woke up, he was startled to find mud all over his hands and feet. He nearly got into a car accident on his way to work. His mental state at the office was absolutely terrible. Ever since finding the fortune, he'd barely gotten any sleep, constantly worrying that someone would break in. When he got home after work, he found multiple muddy footprints on the floor. He compared them with his own shoes and confirmed they weren't his. He immediately ran to the storage room to check. Thankfully, the money was still there. The next day, he arranged to meet his daughter. He wanted to tell her about digging up millions of dollars, but the words got stuck in his throat. He was afraid his daughter would have her eye on the money, so he made up a lie, saying he'd landed a high-paying job and was anxious about messing it up. His daughter comforted him for a while, then rushed off to watch the Euro Cup with her boyfriend. They agreed she'd come visit his new rental place over the weekend. Shortly after, David returned home. The first thing he did was check the money in the storage room. Then he mopped up the muddy footprints on the floor and hung up his suit jacket. That's when something terrifying happened. His nerves had been so on edge that he was startled by his own hanging suit. Just as he was about to leave, he heard footsteps outside again. He kept scanning his surroundings and sure enough, spotted a sinister figure approaching him. David grabbed a fruit knife and rushed outside. As he walked further, something felt increasingly wrong. He suspected he'd fallen for a diversion tactic, so he ran back toward the house. He immediately checked the pile of cash in the storage room. For some reason, he suddenly felt it wasn't safe keeping the money there, so he grabbed an oversized black garbage bag and stuffed all the money inside. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest. So he dug up the wooden crate once again, opened the lid, and put the millions back inside. Not only that, he found a hammer and nails and sealed the crate shut. But the next day, he received a notice from the property management saying they'd be coming over the weekend to clean out the septic tank. David was terrified they'd discover the body, so now he needed to figure out the identity of the corpse. He pried out the nails he'd hammered in the night before. This time he fully opened the lid. Enduring the horrible stench, he searched the body and found a wallet and keys, but the wallet was empty. That evening, he opened the fridge looking for something to eat, only to find it completely bare. So he decided to order some hot pot delivery, but then he encountered
Hello.
He jolted awake in bed. It was just a dream. Once he collected himself, he tried to go to the bathroom, but what he didn't expect was, oh my god. He'd been dreaming within a dream. David furiously looked under the bed. These past few days had driven him to the brink of a nervous breakdown. David knew that if this kept up, it would kill him, so he called the office to take a sick day. Then he opened the wooden crate in the backyard and grabbed a stack of bills. He went to the hardware store and bought a bunch of floodlights and all kinds of security cameras. When he got back, he installed them in every corner of the house. This way, even a fly wouldn't escape his notice. Only then did he feel any sense of security. That night, he took the keys he'd found on the corpse and unlocked a door he'd never opened before. It led to the basement. He turned on his phone's flashlight and slowly made his way down. First, he ran into a couple of rats. Then, when he reached the very bottom, he discovered over a dozen wrapped bundles of unknown objects. He crouched down to take a closer look. They were all wrapped up bodies. David dialed 911 but could never bring himself to press the call button. In the end, he gave up on calling the police, because he couldn't bear to part with the millions he'd just gotten his hands on. Once the police got involved, that money would have nothing to do with him anymore. That night, in the middle of his sleep, a figure appeared on the surveillance footage. The car alarm woke David up. He immediately turned on every single floodlight. Then he rushed to the monitors to check for the intruder. But as he was watching, a sudden clap of thunder knocked out the power. Luckily, it came back on shortly after. But what he saw was horrifying. The corpse from the wooden crate had somehow made its way to his bedroom door. It kept twisting the door handle. Then it started slamming its head against the door over and over. David was absolutely terrified. And that wasn't all. The corpse suddenly turned around, faced the camera, and gave him a creepy head tilt. David didn't dare even breathe. But when the corpse cheerfully walked away, he suddenly became incredibly brave and chased after it. When he reached the doorway, he stepped on a glass he'd broken earlier. The pain was so excruciating he collapsed on the spot, howling in agony. He was convinced the corpse had placed that glass there. So, fighting through the searing pain, he made his way to the backyard, swearing he would destroy it once and for all. Cursing through the pouring rain, he yanked open the lid, and there the corpse lay, right below. David had completely lost it. He grabbed the pale-faced corpse by the collar and screamed at it to stop playing dead. He demanded it open its eyes and talk. David couldn't take this torment anymore. The next morning when he woke up, he found himself cuddled up with the corpse, having slept with it all night. Perhaps sensing that something intimate had happened, a wave of nausea hit him and he started vomiting. After confirming the money was still there, he went home to shower and headed to work. Just as he started the car and pulled out, he saw the corpse climbing out of the ground. It was glaring at him with pure malice. Seeing how relentless it was, David immediately got out of the car and chased after it.
I just saw you! I know I'm not crazy! I know I'm not fucking crazy!
The corpse moved faster and faster, and right before his eyes, it climbed back into the wooden crate and lay down. David ran over and cursed at it furiously.
I saw you! I fucking saw you! I know! You are fucking alive! You're alive, you motherfucker! I know you're fucking alive! I know you're alive! You son of a bitch! You're alive! You're not fucking dead! Get up! Get up! I saw you! I fucking saw you! Get up! I'm not crazy! I'm not crazy! You're so full of shit! I'm gonna prove it! I know! I'm gonna fucking prove this shit!
Then David went inside and came back with a chainsaw. He aimed it at the corpse and went to work. Blood splattered all over him. Afterward, he went straight to the office covered in it. The smell of blood terrified all his co-workers. His boss, noticing how unhinged he'd been lately, always taking days off or just not showing up, called him out in front of everyone. But David snapped and cursed his boss out. He even threatened to report him to the labor board for exploiting employees. So he was forcibly escorted out by security and fired. But David didn't feel the least bit upset, because there were still millions of dollars waiting for him at home. The moment he pulled into the driveway, he saw the septic tank workers had arrived. They confronted him about the body in the wooden crate.
That's nothing! That's nothing!
You stay away from me!
No, you don't need to do that!
Stay away from me!
No.
I'm calling 911.
No, you don't need to
Stay
call him.
away.
You don't need to call
Stay
him.
away.
When they wouldn't listen to reason, David picked up a hammer and knocked the worker unconscious. Then he dragged out the original corpse. He bagged up both bodies and hauled them down to that dreadful basement. While he was cleaning himself up, another version of him appeared in the mirror. It told him to be wary of everyone around him, because the repairman wasn't the only one after his money. Just then, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. He'd made plans with a friend to watch the Euro Cup final tonight, but so much had happened that day, David had completely forgotten about the game. After such an exhausting day, he decided to just turn off the lights and go to sleep. But in the middle of the night, the security alarm went off again. He checked the footage and there it was, the white corpse. Again, absolutely furious, he declared that this time, no matter what, he would put an end to it. He crept downstairs carefully, then hid around the corner. But the person who walked in was Marco Polo, his lifelong childhood friend. Yet David acted as if he were blind. He tackled his friend to the ground.
David, what are you doing? It's me, Mark!
At this point, David couldn't hear reason anymore, because he was convinced Marco had come to steal his money.
Do knock it off! What the fuck? I know you're here to take my money. I know it. What money? What the fuck?
And just like that, there was one more body in the basement. David calmly made himself a cup of instant coffee. Then he took the money out of the wooden crate once again. In broad daylight, he was paranoid about everything, constantly afraid someone was coming for his money. At night, he chatted with the pile of cash and played chess with it. He even had the money watch movies with him and sleep beside him. The next day, he was woken by a knock at the door. He peeked out and saw it was his daughter's boyfriend. The moment he opened the door, he swung the baseball bat and cracked him right on the head. Then he followed up with over a dozen more blows. While the man was still breathing, he dragged him to the backyard. David wrapped him up in a black garbage bag. Shortly after, the doorbell rang again. This time it was his daughter, Anna. She and her boyfriend had originally planned to come together, but something came up, so she arrived late. David led his daughter down to the basement. She was horrified by the sight of over a dozen corpses, and her boyfriend was still down there, struggling, but David attacked his daughter from behind. When she came to, her hands were already bound in chains.
Why are you doing this?
I know you're here to take my money.
What money? You have to untie him! He's going to die!
You're gonna tell me when the others will come.
What others?
Just tell me!
This is not you! This is not you! Please! Please!
Despite her desperate pleas, David had no intention of letting her go. He left the basement and changed into his most expensive vintage suit. He planned to take his flashy classic car out for a spin, but then he suddenly remembered the bag of money. David could no longer bear the agony that the money had brought him. He poured the money back into the wooden crate. Then he doused it with a bucket of gasoline. He flicked the lighter on, but then he hesitated. In the end, he couldn't bring himself to light it. The sky suddenly opened up with heavy rain. He thought of another way to coexist with the money. David climbed into the wooden crate. Then he pulled the lid over himself. The rain was torrential that night. The water pushed the soil back into place. The backyard soon looked as if nothing had ever been disturbed. And just like that, David stayed with his money forever. His daughter remained locked in the basement. Her boyfriend stopped moving not long after. By the end, you realize this was never a story about finding a fortune. It was a complete record of how greed drives a person insane. One step at a time. David's life didn't start falling apart the moment he dug up that crate. It was the moment he decided not to call the police that he passed the point of no return. That box of money looked like a windfall from heaven. In reality, it was a noose slowly tightening around his neck. At first, he was just scared. Then he became paranoid. And eventually, every single person who entered his world became an enemy trying to steal his money. Whether the corpse actually moved or not no longer matters, because the one truly rising from the dead was David's sanity. The money didn't give him security. Instead, it gave him insomnia, auditory hallucinations, and a shattered mind. The cameras and all his other measures, they weren't meant to keep others out. They were meant to give himself the illusion of courage. The harder he tried to hold on to the money, the more he lost his basic humanity. The most ironic part? When he actually started killing people, he felt calmer. Because in his twisted logic, as long as no one in the world knew, the money was clean. But greed never lets you feel satisfied. It only drags you deeper. The film's final shot shows a single line. What's buried in the backyard? The answer is crystal clear. It's not money. It's not bodies. It's a soul completely devoured by greed. That's all for today's story. I'm Jack. See you next time.